Okay. And so, Suzanne, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we can have question and answers at the end. And it
Fantastic.
looks like you should be able to share screen.
Okay, let me give this a shot. Here we go. Should be it. You can see that okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, Joy, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everybody who is here. As Joy mentioned, my name is Suzanne Smith, and I am the Executive Director of the Amazon River Dolphin Conservation Foundation. It was really fun listening to you guys chat before because I have visited the Pacific Northwest. I've never been out whale watching out there. Um, I'm a born and raised Bostonian at heart. So, Era, I appreciated your take on the Dodgers and the Yankees last night. Um, so I grew up whale watching around Stellwagen Bank and watching all of the humpbacks and grays and minkies and finbacks. But it's really cool to hear you guys talk about the activities happening out there in the Pacific Northwest. So thanks for letting me in early so I could hear a little bit of that banter. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about how all of this got started, because a lot of people do ask me how I began all of this. And okay, so the first thing that I would like to tell everybody is I want to show everybody where we're talking about. Brazil is a very big country, and where the river dolphin is located is also a pretty large area. So typically, when I fly to Manaus, that is the capital of Amazonas, which is one of 26 states in Brazil. And I typically go from Miami to Manaus. And you can see that it is smack dab in the middle of the Amazon, which goes all the way across the country. So this next slide will show a little bit closer as to where we go. So fly, like I said, right into Manaus, and then we do a lot of work on the Amazon River, and then also you can see where the Rio Negro is. We do tend to go north and go up the Rio Negro from there. So, people always ask me when this started, and this all started in 1997. I was actually asked to go on a fish conservation project. If anyone is familiar with it, it's called Project Piaba. And so I went down there and I was helping a lot of fish people. A very good longtime friend of mine was a co-founder of this project, and so I was there to support. But I had heard about these pink river dolphins, and so once we kind of did all the fish stuff, I was really kind of sneaking off and going and seeing what this was all about. And so that was my first trip, and then I did not go back until 2013. And when I went back, I did somewhat of a similar trip, and we get on board these large river boats. This is a very classic looking boat, and we travel several hundred kilometers, looking all around the Amazon. And so the Amazon river dolphins were kind of, like I said, from the beginning, something that I was really fascinated with. And when I went in 1997, I didn't have a whole lot of time to explore on my own. So even though I did get to see them, they still remained a little bit of a mystery to me until I did return in 2013. So some fun facts about river dolphins. They do live in the flooded rainforest of Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Venezuela. Um, they have an unfused neck vertebrae, which I call these fun facts because a lot of these things river dolphins have, but not a lot of other cetaceans have them. So the unfused neck vertebrae is really cool because that means that they can actually turn their heads almost completely from side to side. Other cetaceans do not have that. They do grow upwards of 8 feet. The males are larger. They weigh approximately 300 pounds. Um, Here's another really cool fun fact. When Amazon river dolphins are born, first of all, they are completely gray. And it's not until they get older do they start to turn a little bit of pink. But they are the only dolphins that also keep their rostral hairs. You may know when other cetaceans are born, they all have the rostral hairs, and then within about a few days, they fall off. But not the Amazon river dolphins, they keep them through their adulthood. Another really cool thing is that they have two types of teeth. So they have the cone-shaped teeth, which you would see like in our bottlenose dolphins or um, commersons, anything like that are in the front, but in the back, they actually have spade-shaped teeth. Part of their diet is not only the fish that they get there, piranhas are always a favorite, but they also feed on the larger armored catfish and also turtles. So they need those spade-shaped teeth to help crush those. They were listed in IUCN as endangered in November 2018, and they are locally known as the Boto. So if you hear me say Boto from time to time, I am referring to these guys. So one really cool thing about the Botos is that there is a legend that is still believed about this. Sorry, just found a tack on my floor. So it is believed that the river dolphin is actually a shapeshifter. And they believe that at the night when they are having, when these little communities, these little riverside villages are having fiestas and having, their little parties at night, this handsome, strange man will come into the village and he will seduce all of the women of the village. And they say that he always wears a white hat, and that is to disguise his blowhole. So I've heard many different versions of this legend, but I've also been to areas of the Amazon where some of the elders do believe this story still. And I have been promptly rushed out of the water at times because the elders get very worried about me, which is sweet. So some of the threats to river dolphins, we have habitat degradation, overfishing, gill nets, boat traffic, pollution, habitat destruction. And of course, these are all the things that we hear about globally, right? But one of the worst things, river dolphins have an extra threat that they have to deal with every year. This is called the piracichinga. It is a catfish that is very much wanted, not necessarily in the country of Brazil, but in Peru and Colombia. So that wooden feature that you see in the center of the screen, that is actually a bait box. So river dolphins are hunted and killed with harpoons and with machetes. Um, it is very inhumane. It should not be done at all, but it is not even done in a humane fashion. And sometimes the animals are not even completely killed, and they are put inside of these bait boxes, and they use the boto meat to catch the piracichinga. It is believed that they are far more attracted to the boto meat than anything else, and that they can catch a lot more catfish using boto meat than any other methods. Um, so I will say that back in 2015, there was a moratorium placed on this practice, and it was put into place for 5 years. Um, and that was great. That was a great movement, even though I have no doubt that it continued on a much smaller scale. And that was supposed to be in place for 5 years. under Bolsonaro, who is the previous president to the one that is in place right now, all of anyone researching Amazon river dolphins had hoped that they would just keep the moratorium in place. They would see that there was no real benefit to this practice. And unfortunately, under Bolsonaro, he did lift the moratorium, and this is a legal practice, a legal, not illegal. It's a legal practice, again, in Brazil. So I want to talk about this area, Anavilhanas, because this is one of the first areas where I went and with that first fish group and got to see my first Amazon river dolphins. So you can see where Manaus is. You can see it's a very populated city. There are approximately 2.4 million people in that city. And then as we start to travel up the Black River, which is the Rio Negro, you can see that area in blue is the Anavilhanas National Park. And I came across this place. So this is what we call a floating lodge. And I found that this platform, they have almost every day of the year, they have 15 wild river dolphins that frequent this place. This, much like all of you, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, MMPA, has been in place for 50 years, over 50 years now. And the first time I saw this, it really struck a nerve with me, and I had a lot of internal struggles with it, and I really wanted to see what they were doing and why. So after seeing exactly what the practices were, I realized that I have a skill set that I can help these folks with, because I was seeing a lot of behavior that was not conducive to wild dolphins, but I also knew as a behaviorist that I would be able to help. So when I came back home from a trip to Brazil in 2014, I decided to start the Conservation Foundation. I didn't know anything about nonprofits in terms of how to run one, how to start one. So I did create the foundation, and our mission statement is to conserve the Amazon river dolphin and its environment through research, education, and collaboration. We went ahead and received the articles of incorporation. We have 3 members on our board of directors. Of course, myself, and Dr. Tim Miller Morgan is our vice president. And that's an additional reason why I'm really excited to talk with you all today, because if you are not familiar with that name, he actually runs the Aquatic Animal Health Program for Oregon State University. And then Cy Montgomery, who is a very well-known author. She is our director at large. And then we have 2 advisory board members, Dr. Aaron Frick from Eckerd College and Rick Urban from Mississippi Aquarium. We are an established 501c3 nonprofit. That is our number. And as of 2020, we got our GuideStar Silver Seal of Transparency. So as I was watching and I would go back and I would visit these platforms. One thing that I realized is that there is a lot that we can learn about wild Amazon river dolphins, just Amazon river dolphins, the species in general. Like I mentioned, there was about 15 that would go to this particular platform. It is government sanctioned. Actually, their federal agents, ECMBO, is probably maybe about 50 yards from this location, and the agents do go and check on this place. And one thing that I realized is that we could do photo identification. Anytime I was going there and I was asking questions, well, why are there only 15? Are there more animals that they're interacting with? Are there other animals that we don't see? Are they here every time you feed them? Do you know where they go when you're done feeding them? And nobody knew the answers to my questions, which I thought were pretty basic. So I thought if we did a photo identification catalog, we would be able to identify the individuals. We would know, we would be able to monitor their behavior. We would be able to monitor their diet and their intake, and then we would also be able to track them as well. So I want to point out a few of my favorites. So this is Alessandre. He is a very big dominant male. You can see he's much older. We know that by his teeth that are very worn down. But he is a very charismatic animal. This is doidinha. Doidinha in Portuguese means crazy little one. And you can just see from the two, they are you can very easily tell them apart. Um, so she would come in, and she was a little bit more submissive. Um, but what was interesting is that these animals weren't here all the time. Um, you might see one animal one day, and then you might not see that animal again for 2 weeks. You might not see them again for a month, or you might see them later on that day. But the government does make sure that the animals are only allotted 2 kilograms per day. And you don't need to be a dolphin expert to realize that no adult dolphin is going to survive on 4 pounds of fish a day. So I have a lot. That was another thing that I was very interested in, to make sure that they were foraging for themselves. And in fact, they do. I have hours and hours of footage of these animals fishing on their own. This is Reginaldo. You can see he also looks very different from the other two. Just the very tip of his rostrum is pink. And then you can also see those cone-shaped teeth in the front, and then where they go to spade-shaped in the back. And then the last guy that I want to show you, he is a very interesting character. This is Kurumin. And yes, there is something very wrong with his rostrum. In English, it's not because it's translated, but it's just because it's what we call him. We call him Twisty. So I've gotten a few different reports of what happened. I was told the story that I hear more often than not is that he was harpooned, and that his rostrum did not heal correctly. So instead of actually opening up and down, his rostrum closes side to side. Um, it does not deter him from either taking fish or catching fish on his own. In fact, I would say it does not slow him down at all. He's eating all of the time whenever he is there. I will tell you on a side story about Coromine. Last year, it was last year, he was found harpooned again, and it was right in front of his left eye. Thankfully, it did not hit the eye. And I was on the phone, WhatsApp, on video every single day, trying to help them and to assist. Eventually, a few weeks later, the harpoon fell out, and he is still thriving and doing well, amazingly. The ability of these animals to overcome injuries and illness really astounds me at times. So the second objective that I wanted was to create conservation messaging for visitors with videos and spark educational discussions. When I first started going to this platform, people would pay the equivalent of about $1. They would go out, they would watch the dolphins get fed, and then they would leave. They had a guest book there, and I estimated over 10,000 signatures. And I thought, what a missed opportunity to be able to teach not only residents, locals about the Amazon River dolphins. It always blew me away that there were people right there living on the river that did not know that they had pink river dolphins in their backyard. There are certainly people who visit from the States, but their biggest attraction is Europeans. So what an opportunity to teach about the Amazon River dolphin, why they are sentinel beings, and why their health determines the health of everyone else, especially when you have villages that rely on the fish. And if the dolphins are sick and eating bad fish, then they are going to become sick as well. So right here, this was a little experiment that we did. The gentleman that is wearing the t-shirt with my logo on it, he is one of my Brazilian partners, and he has a biology degree from University of Amazonas in Manaus. And I told him that by teaching them more about the dolphins and talking about the individuals, that people would become more engaged and they would be more interested in the health of the river and why it is so important to save the Amazon River dolphins. And people were really engaged and they were sitting there for a long time asking questions. So I knew that we were on the right track. That large screen TV, I would sit in there during lunchtime. They break for siesta after lunch from about 12 to 3. And on this big screen TV is where I learned some of my Portuguese because they would watch novellas. And some of the folks that work, well, all of the folks that work at this platform, they are not biologists, so they don't really know about the Amazon river dolphin as a species. So we decided to help create with them a video that they could show because they're, especially the women there, they tend to be a little bit more shy. So I thought, well, if we created a video that they could play for the visitors for about 10 minutes, they would be able to get all of the correct information across. They would be able to teach them all of these facts, and then the girls wouldn't feel uncomfortable, and the message would be given all the time consistently. So from doing all of this, I knew the other thing that I wanted to do was to work with the lodge employees and create guidelines for animal care. They were using fish that was not appropriate. It was frozen, and I would open up the freezer and I would find fish that was freezer burned. And also just studying the behavior, I knew that there was a different way that they could get the fish to the animals without any aggression. So that gentleman standing over me in the top picture, that is one of the federal agents from ECMBO that came down and really helped drive all of this because they were kind of at their wits' end on what to do because it, like I mentioned, it is a sanctioned occurrence that happens. It is approved by the Brazilian government. So again, back to kind of having my own internal conflict. I once had a friend tell me, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just different. And and I wanted to be able to help them, and I knew that I could help. So I just didn't want to turn a blind eye. I wanted to be able to help them. So I knew if we worked closely with the federal government and the people from the lodge or the platform, we would then have some baseline data that we could then also track the river dolphins to learn more about their site fidelity, their foraging patterns, and the population. Like I had mentioned earlier, no one knew where these animals were going. No one knew because the animals weren't always there. They were kind of coming and going as they pleased, which was great. But the Amazon is huge. So where are they going? And we've been able to do some of that now. So I also learned that there were additional platforms, which I was very surprised to find out. And in fact, the federal agencies also did not know that these were happening. So I was going to many different platforms and seeing what was happening. So there's a few different platforms here that I came across. One thing that was really interesting about this place, Jacareubal, this young man in the yellow t-shirt, His name is Zay, and I was there one afternoon and I was taking pictures of river dolphins. I was trying to do more photo ID so we could see, so we would be able to see these animals in different areas and we would be able to ID them and know where they were. We would know how far they were traveling. Um, and one day it was lunchtime and I was just sitting out on the dock taking pictures. Nobody was around. Um, the the other workers were going and taking their siesta or doing whatever it is that they were doing. And all of a sudden, Zay came down and he went into the water and he brought a yellow ball with him. And he went out swimming. Um, And these river dolphins came in from out of nowhere. And he started tossing the ball, and these river dolphins were bringing it back to him. He had no food with him. There was no one else around. There was no motivation for these animals to do this. And I watched this for well over an hour. Um, and I was fascinated by it. River dolphins have a very different type of curiosity, a type of curiosity that can also get them into a lot of trouble. This is a very sheltered area. You cannot get here other than by boat. It is far away from Manaus. But this also was the first time that I realized how much they really do care about the animals, even though they might not the biology background or may not understand fully about the species. So I really knew in working with them, they would be really open to how we can go about saving the species. So, so as I continue to do these projects, obviously it takes money. So we do have we raise a lot of funds. We are a very grassroots organization. We do have a website. Obviously, we take donations. We sell t-shirts. We have books. And the reason why the books are so important, I mentioned Cy Montgomery earlier as one of our directors, and she wrote this book, Journey of the Pink Dolphin and Amazon Quest, which is actually how I came to know her. It's kind of a long, twisty road, but she is amazing. If you guys have ever heard of the soul of an octopus, and she covers a new species probably about every 18 to 24 months. I know she's releasing a turtle and tortoise book this week, and she's been down to Amazon, so we sell her books through her. Tumblers, magnets. I love this magnet because this is from a fishing village far north on the Rio Negro, and they usually do wood carvings of peacock bass, but they know how much I love the river dolphins, so they did this carving for me, and now they do a bunch of them. And I will go up when I go and visit them. I will pay them for say 50 to 100 of these magnets, which helps support them. And that's really important because through this, if they can't find a sustainable living, unfortunately, for a lot of these riverside communities, they do need to turn to other industries that are not good for the Amazon rainforest and its inhabitants. That includes illegal mining. It includes agriculture. So it's important for me to try to find sustainable ways that they can support their village. Um, we have received grants from the SeaWorld Busch Gardens Conservation Fund. They have actually been very generous to us, which has been great. And the Patty Foundation has also been really good. They actually helped purchase the grant money from them, helped purchase all of our camera equipment to do our photo ID and then also do a lot of underwater footage, which helped lead to making sure that the animals were foraging for themselves. So having moved on from the platforms, I had always wanted to, like I mentioned, the fourth objective was always to do population surveys and other things. So we started the population surveys, and you can see there in 2017, we counted 83 individuals. And then what was really interesting is there is another species of freshwater dolphin, and they are called the tucuxi. They're also known as the Amazon gray dolphin. I like to call them pocket terciops. They look just like bottlenose, but smaller. Um, and they are always where I'm traveling on the Amazon. And I said, well, heck, they were declared endangered as well as all the freshwater dolphins were back in 2018. So I said, they're right there. We're not going out of our way, so we should be doing all of this work to protect them as well. So you can see in 2018, and then in 2019 we included Sotalia, which is the tucuxi. It's Sotalia fluviatilis. Um, and so we started counting them. And then, of course, as you know, 2020 was the dreaded COVID. So we are hoping to start getting back to our population surveys next year. As you can see, there is a slight trend, but unfortunately, 2 years does not a trend make in science. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we go to count next year. Last year was one of the worst droughts on record in this area and in Brazil, and they lost upwards of 400 river dolphins. And they are predicting this year is going to be worse. So I've actually been invited to go down and do some workshops on how to do field sampling and whatnot, and then also potentially help with any live dolphins that need either relocation or need rehabilitation temporarily. So another thing that we have purchased with our grant money is hydrophones. So in the summer of 2017, we began to collect audio recordings, and we have sampled both Amazon river dolphins and the tucuxi. And kind of flipping back to talking about how it's really neat to work with these riverside folks, because one of the things that I strongly believe that kind of went to that internal struggle that I had, if they don't believe the work that I'm doing, then they're not going to care about it, and it's never going to happen. So it would be really easy for me to go in and say, you're not doing the right thing. But if I did that, then they could very well say to me, well, you don't need to be here. So I've always felt that it's very important to form these relationships and these friendships with these folks so they can learn more about them. So in that bottom picture, I'm actually holding a hydrophone in the water, and I'm letting one of the villagers listen to the river dolphins as it was happening live, and they just thought that that was the coolest thing. So one of our board of directors, one of our advisors who I've mentioned is Dr. Erin Frick. She studied under and got her PhD under Dr. Stan Kujai, who was actually one of my original board members. And her my specialty is collecting the audio samples. Her specialty is deciphering them. So she is a professor at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I will send her and her students all of the samples that I get, and they decipher them with this special software that they have. So I'm going to play two clips for you. So it's really fascinating to me because I don't know how to use the software, but she does. And that is very, very different from what it sounds like when I send it into her. So I will play it again. And you will see, I even missed it that time myself. So I'm going to try this left side and you will see the bar go across the screen here. And then this is the sounds that it gets picked up. Oop, there it goes. Hopefully you guys could hear that. Okay, I'm going to assume that you did. I'm going to go on to the next one. Again, you watch a small bar go across here, and then right when it hits the pink square, that's where you start to hear the Boto recordings.
Suzanne, we're not hearing the sound. We can see the recordings, but
Oh
we're not
shoot.
hearing the sound.
Okay, let me try this second one real quick and see if that's I can hear it on my end. Any luck, Joy?
No, but we could see the sound moving across.
Okay. I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. That is unfortunate. I will try to see, Joy, if I can send you a separate email with that, and you are more than welcome to share that with your group. So I continue to collect audio samples of the river dolphins and the two Kushi, and Erin and her undergrad and her graduate students continue to go ahead and comb through all of those files. The other thing that we thought, so the Rio Negro is called the Black River. And so I was wondering if we could use drones because the Amazon River is just so huge and there's so many little tributaries and so many little waterways. It's very difficult to navigate, especially when it's high water. Um, so I have a very good friend um, who actually now lives in Manaus, and he is a professional videographer and filmographer. He does all kinds of nature films and whatnot. So I asked him if he would be willing to come out with me one day and fly his drone and see if that is something that we could potentially maybe use to help us with our studies. So after a full 12-hour day, this is some sampling that we got. So unfortunately, I edited that, but all that drone footage was collected by Don McConnell, very, very talented videographer. We learned a lot of lessons that day. Um, I do think that drones will definitely be useful. Drones, as you guys probably know, are continually getting better and better and better. So I think I would like to see more drone work done. I would also like to potentially use drones to collect breath samples in the future. So a couple of villages that I visit while I'm down there. I mentioned the people. I just love the people so much. So this is one small village called Daraqua. Um, I love all the children. So that one little girl that has the heart around her, her name is Jocelyn, and the first time I met her was in 2014, and her aunt had told her that I was kind of the dolphin girl, and she came and took me by my hand and brought me down to the river, and uh, I just fell in love with her. And like I said, I think it's so important to have these relationships because this is their home, this is their area, and if I can help them, I would love to. And if it helps them learn, more about their environment and why it's important, and teach them more about the species, then that's really what it's all about. Um, these all these folks can find me on the river. I don't know how they know when I'm there, but they come and find me. And to show you how important these folks are to me. So this is little Jocelyn and I in 2020. I was fortunate enough to make one last trip right before COVID happened. I've been down there since, but this was like a month and a half before COVID hit, and I got to see her. She's 18. She just had a birthday this week on the 23rd. She has a 1-year-old baby. So I love all these friendships that I have formed with everyone on the river. This is an area called Sao Tome community. This is a village that ARDCF kind of sponsors. I do a lot of my research based out of here. So I take not only when I go down there by myself solo to do research, but I also lead eco tours. I work with a partner down there, and I do at least 2 trips every year. And I ask people to bring school supplies for me. And so we go and we visit. You see that middle picture up at the top, or the 3 pictures up at the top. We are distributing pencils and crayons and notebooks. And the kids are just absolutely so thrilled. I, I I've never given a child here a notebook and have just been so, and just see a child's face light up. It really means everything. So they really enjoy that. And I'm so happy to support them, especially for schools and for the children. Um, I strongly believe in conservation education. This little girl was from Sao Tome, and I had told the village that if they were interested in learning about river dolphins, that I would take them out. I would take the kids, and I would take them to an area where they could see them. And I went back the next morning to go pick them up, and there was only one little girl there in the morning. And I said, okay, it starts with one, right? We have to start somewhere. So I took Gabrielle with me in my canoe. When I'm doing my research, I always have at least one assistant, and I always have a Brazilian assistant with me. And so we took her to this area, and I spoke to her in Portuguese and taught her all about the Amazon river dolphin, um, from their neck to their teeth and what they eat and why they're so important. Um, and I had a great day with her. I ended up just kind of keeping her for the day, and we had a barbecue out on the beach. And then later that evening, I brought her back to her community and said goodbye. And then the next morning, I was laying in my hammock. It was very early on a Sunday morning, and I heard a canoe coming up to the beach. I sleep in a hammock out in the middle of the forest, and It was four elder women from the community, and one of them got out and told me that Gabrielle was her granddaughter, and she said that she had a great day, and the woman wanted to know if I would be willing to teach her and her friends. It did not take me 2 seconds to jump out of my hammock and go spend the day with them as well. So it has continued to grow from there, and that's why it's so important. So talking a little bit about the expeditions that we do, you can see that picture in the middle. I take these very large river boats. I can take up to 20 people at a time. It's two people per room. You have your bathroom, shower, air conditioning, and I take you not only to see where I do all of my research with the river dolphins, but we tow canoes behind us and we go on excursions into the flooded forest and we see all kinds of birds and sloths and anything else that you can imagine. So, I have a trip coming up in March and have about 8 or 10 slots left if anybody is interested in coming along. It's a 10-day trip and it's absolutely fabulous. Like I said, we leave out of Manaus and we travel up the Rio Negro and we very rarely see people, which is nice. But I take you into the Riverside communities as well, because that's a part of it. We're all in it together. So some of the scenes from the Rio Negro, we see red and black howler monkeys. The picture below is one of my most favorite areas. It's called Atoria, and you can just see how red that water looks, and it's crystal clear, but that is from all of the tannins in the water. They have a lot of endangered species, from tigers, excuse me, tigers. I don't even know where that came from. Turtles, um, spider monkeys, squirrel monkeys, capuchins, caiman, sloths, which we already saw, the brown-throated sloth. And we also go to indigenous villages. There's one in particular where I go to, and they will demonstrate for us the traditional song and dance, and their what they wear as well. Um, Here's a little underwater footage. You can notice those rostral hairs if you look too when he turns in the sun. Um, so um, please feel free to visit my website. Our website is ardcf.org. We are, of course, on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all the things. Yeah, I've been at this project. We are 10 years old. This year, actually, it has been an amazing journey. Um, from first seeing these river dolphins to now working on population surveys and still continuing to build on that photo ID catalog and working with Brazilian researchers, working with the Brazilian government and working with federal agents and state agents as well. We're definitely making strides and very proud to have this organization and looking forward to continuing the work.
Thank you, Suzanne. That was wonderful. Uh, and Eddie mentioned amazing drone video captures, especially underwater and the dark background. That was interesting
It's
to
very
see.
cool because we had
Yes.
no idea what we were going to get. We kind of, and it was like a day of hijinks. because if any of you have ever worked with drones, the battery life is like a nanosecond. And when you're out in the middle of the Amazon and you go with four charged batteries, but they don't last long, and then trying to find a place where you can charge them, and it was a lot of trials and tribulations, but I think it can do a lot of good for us.
Yes. So at what age do the dolphins start turning from the gray to the pink, and what causes that?
That's a great question. And I never put it in, although I should, because inevitably I get asked. So there's a lot of theories behind it. Um, so it tends to be the males who turn more pink. And, it's really easy. Like if you think about flamingos, oh, it must be in the food, but that's not it at all. There's a couple of leading theories. One is from the scarring, and that's why they believe that the males tend to be more pink because as they are kind of fighting with one another over territory, food, pretty girls, whatever the case may be, and they're raking up one another. When those scars start to heal, they turn pink. Um, Also, the capillaries are very close to the surface, so some people believe it's like blushing, like for us. If you look at, I relate to terciops a lot. Terciops, your spinners, your spotteds, they kind of tend to have a pink belly. Sometimes you will see more of the pink on these guys on their bellies, but it can be all over, which I think is why the photo ID is really cool because they're some of them are really easily identifiable, which makes following them pretty easy if they pop up in other areas. You may, I know exactly who that is. When did you get over here? And wow, that's a really long distance, or oh, it's right around the corner from where I saw you last. So there's still a few theories out there, no hard concrete, because it does range to if you go into other areas up towards more the mouth of the Amazon, the dolphins tend to be more pink, which doesn't necessarily lend to either one of those theories, other than maybe the sun, because we do know that cetaceans can get sunburned. So lots of theories there.
Uh, Era said, ironically, this morning, a Portland TV station that carries Jack Hanna conservation shows on Saturday morning had an episode on the Pink River dolphins on the Rio Negro. This program totally added to that.
That
That is
is, I
quite,
know exactly which episode you're talking about, Era, and I saw that. Um, yes, I did. I saw that a few years ago.
uh, and then Era said, I saw one at the Steinhardt Aquarium in San Francisco back in the 1970s and 80s and was wondering if you were aware of any other aquariums with these species.
Yes, so actually, many of them were imported into this country back in the 60s and the 70s. There is a YouTube video, and I happen to have it saved, but if I have to find it on my own, it's really hard to find. I think it's called the Pink Porpoise. Joy, I can send that link to you as well because it actually follows the capture, and it's in black and white, of freshwater dolphins coming to aquariums here in the US, and they were all over the country, and some of them were pretty famous. So of the most famous, Shed Aquarium had them, and the one that was known there, his name was Chico. There was Aquarium of Niagara, who had Buster, and then Pittsburgh Zoo had Chuckles, and Chuckles actually lived the longest and died in 2001. And then Duisburg Zoo over in Germany was successful with river dolphins under human care, and even had babies there but the last one died in Duisburg. I believe if it wasn't one, it was 2 years ago, and that was the last. There is, however, one at a facility in Peru, and honestly, it's in terrible conditions. I'm not sure of its background, if it was a rehab case that they ended up keeping. But he is in a concrete pool in pretty deplorable conditions. Um, Duisburg Zoo, I've never been there, but I did see pictures and videos of it, and it looked like a nice facility as far as that goes. And like I said, Pittsburgh Zoo had Chuckles, oh gosh, I believe 30 years. But there are no more other than the one that I know of in Peru.
Thank you. Um, Eddie asked, in addition to assigning common names in your photo catalog, do you classify them numerically as well?
At the time, no, because we don't have that many of them. We have about 20 of them at this point that we consistently see and can ID. My hope is that that number will get larger. And then, yes, I will have to start doing numbers, because I've also found that there are particular individuals, and this is very interesting because I've done a questionnaire at different platforms, where we found out that there are a few individuals that are going to different platforms. So I might know the animal as two or three different names, but this platform over here might know this animal as Joe, and this animal might be the same animal might be known over here as Bill. So that will be important in terms of numeric as well.
So, I know you mentioned some of the threats to them. Do they have any natural predators?
No, there's jaguars down there, but they don't tend to, they're more likely to catch a caiman or the cappies. Um, Certainly, if it was a drought situation, and the water's low and maybe there's a calf swimming around, um, but I have not seen or heard. But again, that doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but none that I know of. It's just us. It's just us doing the damage.
And it sounds like we're doing a lot of damage with the
Indeed.
destruction of habitat and um,
Absolutely. We are hoping, so one of my big goals for well, in 2025, we've already started it earlier this year. So if you guys remember that picture that I spoke of, the red water, the tannins in Artoria, there is a piece of land that we are hoping to purchase there. With my partner that was also in one of the pictures. He's Brazilian. We are hoping to purchase a big chunk of land there to start, and hopefully maybe eventually somewhere down the line start to build up an education and resource center. But the point being to start to claim this land so that it can't be destroyed. One of the things that they are discovering is that it is easier, um, it, or it's harder for these companies that want to come in, do the illegal mining and deforestation, if there's actually paper of the land and who owns it, then they are more likely to not mess with that, and they just kind of are going and finding random areas. So we want to start with a big chunk of land where there is one of these communities, and start to build on that so we can protect that.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. Um, does anyone else have questions for Suzanne? Um, Let me see here. Okay, you can go ahead and unmute yourself to ask questions if you would like.
At what age do they start reproducing?
Between 5 and 7 years old.
Okay. And I noticed like in the drone footage that it seemed there'd be like maybe one or two. Do you see larger pods of these, larger
So what's really cool is so before I like when I really first started kind of delving into this and asking questions, what I was told is that they are solitary animals. Um, and it's not uncommon to see only one or two, but very rarely do I see, say, more than 10 or 12 together, which is definitely much different from the solitary um, thing that I have been told. But the smaller one, the tukushi, I've actually seen upwards of 100 of them together one time.
Oh, okay.
I have a
Is
question.
Go ahead.
Um, I assume they eat fish. Do you know what kind of fish? And is that why they're pink?
They are not pink from the food. They do eat, there's so many types of fish in the Amazon. Um, it is delicious. They do eat piranhas, and they eat fish that's very similar to our sardines. Um, but in addition to that, they have also known to eat there's a fish called a red-tailed catfish down there. It's very big, it has very large scales. They can eat those because of the flat teeth that they have in the back of their mouths. And while not a common part of their diet, they have been known to eat turtles.
Eat what?
turtles.
Oh, turtles.
Very interesting.
And what's the gestation period, and are they able to reproduce enough that they're going to have a good recovery rate?
It is approximately a year. It's approximately 12 to 13 months. And that question is yet to be determined. So with the pure Kachinga, it's really sad numbers because just in one very small area, they killed upwards of 1,500 river dolphins in just one small area to catch catfish. Um, so with numbers like that, it's going to be hard to keep up. One of the things that was really that's really kind of come full circle for me is the first time that I went to Brazil and worked on that fish conservation project, I remained friends with someone who's very big in fisheries down there. And he has been instrumental in getting me into meetings with federal agents that work with the dolphins. But now he has seen the dolphin side of things, and him and I have had very lengthy discussions on this pure kachinga catfish. Catfish, for the lack of a better word, we know that they're trash fish, right? They're scavengers. They should be able to eat anything. Why do they have to feed on the river dolphins? Although that it is believed that they will catch more. But I would love to see some aqua farming. If it's the catfish that you want, then let's set up some riverside pens and raise up catfish that way. So hopefully we can start to combat this fishing practice that's happening by teaching them that skill set as well. So it's kind of been nice to collaborate and join forces with some folks from the fisheries side of things as well.
I've got a question about the piranha. I've heard that they were, or I've seen footage through the years of the aggressiveness of piranha. It can clean a cow in 5 minutes. I don't know whether that's true, but how do the dolphin protect themselves from the piranha while in the water and manage to eat something? It seems like the piranha are basically a very little fish and all teeth.
Yeah, so there's a couple different species that I come across down there. There's the red belly piranha and the black piranha. Um, Piranha, I don't want to downplay them, but they've definitely gotten quite the reputation for themselves. I have been swimming with them. I've also gone fishing for them and eaten them, and they're delicious, which makes me feel good sometimes. So the dolphins, it's interesting if I'm going, for example, if I'm going fishing for piranha, if I'm taking out my group and we're going to go fishing for piranhas, if there are dolphins around, I don't want to be there because the dolphins will go and catch them and eat them, and then I'll be out of luck. And the fish know enough to stay away from them. The piranhas don't bother anybody. I know that's hard to believe, but there's no remember the old piranha movie from, I think it was from the 70s, early 80s, when they came into the swimming pools, and um they've been slightly over dramatized. Now I have been bit by one accidentally when I was fishing, and I can tell you that they do have very sharp jaws, and it did hurt. And it just so happens, I'm going to see if this works. I actually have a piranha jaw on my desk.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can see it.
See the teeth there. So that's right in the front. So
Wow.
can definitely do some damage. Yeah. That was
Wow.
the last one. That was the last one that bit me.
So it
That
sounds
was
like
my revenge.
sounds like they're getting a bad rap like sharks do, and then people go crazy and go hunting them, slaughter millions of them for no reason.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nancy said, thank you so much, Suzanne, for the very interesting presentation. I think all of us enjoyed this and learned a lot. Um, is there anything that we could do to try and encourage the government to resume that moratorium they had?
You know, it's funny because here we are in the midst of our own political craziness, right? And Brazil is not different. Bolsonaro, their prior president, he was so vocal about we are going to cut down all of the trees and we're going after our natural resources, and this is what we want to do. This is why it's in our country. It's meant to be used. And he was just so the antithesis of any kind of environmental person. And then the president that's in charge right now, he was previously convicted and was in jail. And there is a Brazil law that if you run for at least president, I don't know if it's all political offices, that gets you out of prison. And sure enough, even though he was the prior president, and there was all kinds of corruption links and whatnot, he got voted back in. So even though there are a lot of problems that come with him, he does seem to be taking a little bit more of an environmental stance. So we're hoping that this moratorium comes back into play And so we write letters of support. We've done with my friend who's the videographer. He's done some short films, and we've even talked about tourism and how important tourism is down there, and that it needs to be done sustainably and responsibly and respectfully. But that also includes the big picture, and that people will not support coming to Brazil if the areas are not protected.
That sounds great. Well, I want to thank you so much, Suzanne. And I think most of our participants know Dr. Tim.
Yay!
Yes, and he's the one who connected me to you. And
Oh, there it is.
he was at one of our ACS meetings, and I asked him if he was doing his Project Piaba trip
Yes, that's the fish project I
again.
talked about.
And he said, "Oh, well, if you want to see the dolphins, let me tell you about Suzanne." So
So
thank you
he's so
so much.
wonderful. So the person who started Piaba is an old friend of mine, from when we worked at New England Aquarium together in Boston as teenagers. And so I went on Project Piaba with him. And then I did two more Piaba trips. That was in 97. And then when I went in 2013 and 2014, Dr. Tim was on that trip. And so I would always get him engaged in these dolphin discussions. And I was like, we're supposed to be talking about fish. And I'm like, no, I want to talk about the dolphins. So he was a very obvious choice to have him as a part of the board. Not only because he's a wonderful vet, but because he knew the areas and he knew a lot of my philosophies, and we shared a lot of the same philosophies. So I have loved having him as a part of this.
Again, thank you so much, Suzanne. And if you
Thank you.
send me those links, I will be sure to share them with everyone.
I will, and be sure to check out the website if anybody's interested in coming down. We have a great time. It's usually it tends to lean towards dolphin and whale enthusiasts, but we have all kinds of bird people that come with us too, and just nature lovers, adventurers. It's a really good time. All the information is on the website, so would love to introduce you to some pink river dolphins.
All right. Eddie wrote, "Thank you for doing what you do and sharing it with us today. It all seems so amazing from a conservation, education, cultural, and community involvement. I'll be sure to visit your social media and website. Much appreciated." So I
Thank
think
you
that
so much.
speaks for all of
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Yeah.
Joy.
Bye-bye.